The police sirens wailed through the underground parking garage as Victoria Chen pressed her back against the cold concrete pillar, her $3,000 Valentino heels scraping against oil-stained pavement. Her hands trembled, not from fear of the officers searching for her, but from the devastating realization that everything she'd built over 15 years was crumbling in a single night. The empire, the reputation, the life, all of it disintegrating because of one catastrophic mistake she never saw coming. And in approximately 7 minutes, when those officers found her, she'd become the most hated woman in America. Victoria Chen wasn't supposed to be hiding in a parking garage at midnight. She was supposed to be at the plaza, celebrating the biggest merger in her company's history. Just 8 hours earlier, she'd stood in her corner office on the 47th floor of the Chen Industries Tower, overlooking Manhattan like a queen surveying her kingdom. Her tech company had revolutionized cloud security, making her a billionaire by 35. Forbes had called her the Iron Phoenix. Wall Street worshipped her. She had everything except the truth. The truth was currently splashed across every news channel in the country. Her company's software, the very product that made her fortune, had been breached. Not just breached, weaponized. Someone had used it to steal medical records from children's hospitals across 17 states. Thousands of sick children's private information, now in the hands of identity thieves. The FBI had traced the vulnerability back to a cost-cutting decision Victoria had approved 2 years ago. She'd overridden her security team's warnings to meet quarterly projections. It's a calculated risk, she'd told them. The probability of exploitation is less than 0.03%. She'd been wrong. Catastrophically, life-destroyingly wrong. Now parents were on television, crying, holding photos of their children. A mother in Ohio had discovered someone opened credit cards in her 6-year-old daughter's name, a daughter battling leukemia. A father in Texas learned his son's social security number was being used to file fraudulent tax returns while the boy recovered from a liver transplant. Victoria had watched the press conference from her office, her blood turning to ice as the FBI director announced they were seeking criminal charges against her. Personally, she'd run. It was stupid and impulsive and everything she'd never been in her carefully controlled life, but she'd run. Down the emergency stairs, through the service corridors, into the parking garage where her driver kept her town car. Except her driver wasn't there. Nobody was there. They'd all abandoned her. So now she stood in the shadows, listening to footsteps echoing through the garage, watching flashlight beams sweep across concrete, waiting for her life to officially end. "Miss, you okay?" Victoria spun around, her heart hammering. A man stood about 10 feet away, holding a mop and bucket. He wore a gray janitor's uniform with a patch that read, Eddie. He was maybe 40, with kind eyes and calloused hands, looking at her with genuine concern rather than recognition. "I'm fine," she said quickly. "Just waiting for someone." Eddie tilted his head, studying her expensive suit, her disheveled hair, the mascara streaks on her face. "You're hiding." It wasn't a question. Victoria opened her mouth to deny it, then closed it. What was the point? Yes, from them. He nodded toward the police presence 2 levels up. She nodded, unable to speak. Eddie was quiet for a moment, then he did something that stunned her. He walked closer, set down his mop bucket, and sat on the ground beside the pillar. "Sit with me a minute." "What?" "No, I can't. Sitting isn't illegal," he said simply. "And those officers won't look twice at a janitor taking his break." Victoria hesitated, then sank down beside him, her legs finally giving out. They sat in silence, listening to the distant sound of radio chatter and footsteps. She should have been terrified. Instead, sitting there on the dirty garage floor next to a stranger, she felt the first moment of calm she'd experienced in hours. "I'm Eddie Martinez," he said quietly. "Single dad, 2 kids. Been working nights here for 6 years. Why are you telling me this?" "Because you look like you forgot that people are just people." He pulled out his phone and showed her his lock screen, 2 smiling kids, maybe 8 and 10. "That's Maya and Carlos. Maya wants to be an astronaut. Carlos wants to be a chef. I'm working 3 jobs to keep them fed and clothed since their mom passed." Victoria felt tears burning her eyes. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be. We're happy." Eddie looked at her. "I know who you are, Miss Chen. Saw you on the news tonight." Victoria's chest tightened. Then why are you sitting here? Why aren't you calling them? Because I know something else too. He reached into his bucket and pulled out a folded newspaper from that morning, before the scandal broke. This article right here says Chen Industries donated $5 million to St. Catherine's Children's Hospital last month. Anonymous donation, but the hospital director thanked your company specifically. That was just PR, Victoria whispered. Was it? Eddie met her eyes. My daughter Maya had surgery there last year. Heart defect. That donation paid for new equipment in the cardiac unit. The surgeon told me that equipment saved her life. Victoria stared at him, unable to process what he was saying. I'm not saying what happened wasn't serious, Eddie continued. Those families are hurting, and that's real. But I'm also saying that maybe you're not just the villain they're making you out to be. Maybe you made a mistake. A big one. But maybe you're also the person who saved my little girl's life. I didn't know, Victoria said, her voice breaking. I didn't know about your daughter. I didn't know that donation would. She stopped, covering her face with her hands. I've been so focused on numbers and growth and beating projections that I forgot those numbers represented people. Real people, children. Eddie nodded slowly. My mom used to say that we're not defined by our worst mistake. We're defined by what we do after we make it. Victoria looked up at him. What do I do? How do I fix this? Can you fix it? I don't know. Maybe. The security flaw can be patched. We can offer lifetime identity protection to every affected family. We can set up a fund to help with any financial damage. But it won't undo what happened. No, Eddie agreed. But it's a start. And it's more than running does. Victoria was quiet, thinking. Running had been instinct, the trapped animal's response. But Eddie was right. She'd built an empire by solving problems, not avoiding them. This was the biggest problem of her life, and she was hiding in a parking garage. They're going to arrest me, she said. Probably. Eddie stood up and offered her his hand. But you can either face that as someone who ran, or as someone who walked back in with her head up, ready to make things right. Victoria took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. Her legs shook, but she steadied herself. Why are you helping me? Eddie smiled. Because Maya's alive to want to be an astronaut. Because sometimes people need someone to remind them they're more than their worst day. And because that's what my wife would have done. Victoria felt something shift inside her chest. A loosening of the panic, a clarity she hadn't felt in hours. Thank you. I don't even know how to properly thank you. Thank me by doing the right thing. Eddie picked up his mop bucket. I need to finish my rounds before my shift ends at 6. I've got to pick up Carlos from my sisters before school. He started to walk away, then paused and turned back. Miss Chen, those families deserve answers and help. But you also deserve a chance to give it to them. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Victoria watched him disappear around the corner, this janitor who'd shown her more grace in 5 minutes than she'd shown anyone in years. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and made a call. Not to her lawyer, but to her chief of security. It's Victoria. Wake up the entire team. We're patching the security flaw tonight and establishing a victim support fund before morning. And get me the FBI director's number. I'm turning myself in, but first, I'm giving them every piece of information we have to help those families. An hour later, Victoria walked out of the parking garage and directly to the police officers waiting in front of the building. The cameras were already there, of course. Every news outlet in the city. As she raised her hands, she saw the headlines writing themselves. But she also saw something else. Eddie, watching from the garage entrance, giving her a single nod. She'd face the consequences. She'd lose the company, probably. Maybe go to prison. But she'd fix what she could fix, help who she could help, and prove that a single terrible mistake didn't have to define her forever. Because a janitor working 3 jobs to support his kids had taken 5 minutes to remind her what being human actually meant. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change everything.